Welcome, everyone. This is Pineleaf News, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Terry Adwin.
Hi.
And our guest for tonight is Cinders.
Hello.
So let us begin with some of the more interesting parts of the news this week, because they have made a couple of little changes that are upcoming. We have a build and bull roar, and we have the first round of the class changes.
Yeah, just some little changes.
Minor changes. Absolutely not controversial whatsoever.
Yeah.
So we'll begin at the top. In general, they said that this is the first round of class changes. It is not the end of it. It's just the very beginning. They took what things that they could do and that needed to be done most and that could be done. I think there is the Bjornings, they say, is just too massive a job. They could not do the Bjornings at all in this pass, even though to them they feel that's probably the one that needs it the most, but they didn't have time to do that. And the other thing that they noted up on the top is that there are certain things about the tactical relics. Apparently, the tactical relics didn't have certain limitations on them that they were supposed to have.
Oops.
Now they have decided that they are going to enforce that in the future and are coming up with how they are going to handle in compensation for that in the on that particular matter. But the matter is that the response to that particular item has been through the roof. I think the minstrels are the ones who are really screaming about that one.
Well, minstrels apparently have plenty of stuff to scream about. Because they got kind of nerfed.
Well, yes, and we'll get to that one in a little bit. And we'll now head into the basic class ones, and we'll go through this one class at a time in the order they're given in the update notes. And it looks like the first one on the list are the champions.
Yeah, well, alphabetical order and everything. So, champion skill damage being increased across the board. And then blue line changes. The champion blue line set bonus glory is being changed to a flat 10% melee damage reduction. Morale bubble from the blue line spec skill sudden defense is being converted to a percent bubble covering around 15% of the player's unmodified max morale. Sudden defense's morale bubble grants 10% melee damage while active. Riposte now grants sweeping riposte by default. And some blue line traits have been rearranged in the tree to address balance issues when buying traits outside specialization. So sweeping riposte has gone from row 3 to row 2. Placed strikes is row 4 to row 3. Tactical mitigation increase from row 1 to row 3. And vitality increase from row 2 to row 1. And then yellow line blade wall's inherent damage has been increased dramatically, and the bonus damage from the trait barbed wall has decreased in proportion. This was done to make barbed wall less of a must-have trait, which seems a little bit strange to me.
Blade wall damage has been increased, and barbed walls. But okay, blade wall though is a basic skill, isn't it?
Blade wall is a basic skill, and this is. So basically, Blade Wall's damage has been increased to all champions of all trait lines, from what I can understand, having read the forum notes. Now, I should probably comment here that I wasn't actually able to get into Bull Roar while it was up, and it's been down all day today, which is the only day that I would have been able to get into it. So what I know of the changes so far has come from reading the forum posts. But, and I'm not on Terry at the moment, but I am on another champion who's got blue line traded. So let's talk blue line changes.
All right.
Because, so Glory currently is reducing melee damage taken by 2% per fervor pip. So if you get up to 5 fervor, it reduces 10% of your incoming melee damage. But it's interesting because 10% melee damage reduction isn't a lot of damage reduction, considering that most of what we're dealing with is going to be more tactical than melee or ranged, because that's the whole PPs must die. That's where the whole PPs must die thing comes from. The morale bubble from the blue line spec skill sudden defense is being converted. So the bubble currently from sudden defense, where is sudden defense? I know it's here somewhere. Morale bubble currently depends on how much fervor you spend.
Okay. And that would be whatever you are, because I presume it spends all your fervor currently?
It spends all of your fervor, yes.
Right. So,
really need to look at these on Terry.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Sudden Defense's Morale Bubble grants plus 10% melee damage whilst it's active. Okay. So in other words, it sounds like a champion's motto, the best defense is a good offense.
That's pretty much how Blue Line works anyway. And Riposte dealing sweeping riposte. So Riposte is actually an interesting skill because it's one of those skills that only opens if you parry, which is kind of why I don't understand they felt the need to give champions the ability to block with a two-handed weapon, since we've already got something that deals that we can use parries for. And then sweeping riposte affects multiple targets.
Oh, okay. And let's see, some blue line traits have been rearranged. And do many champions dabble into blue when they're not in blue? Because it sounds like the reason had to do with cross trading.
I know Terry in Redline has got a couple of points in aggressive exchange, where Bladewell reduces the damage of enemies for a short duration.
All right, I noticed that one's not affected by this particular list.
And I think she's got I think she actually does have the tactile mitigation increase. I have to swap characters and look. I know she is traded a little bit in Blue Line. Her build right now is mostly red, but she's dabbled a bit in yellow and blue. The tactical mitigation being in the first line makes it really easy to acquire for any other outside specs. So that could be why they dropped it down. Mind you, swapping out a tactical mitigation increase for a vitality increase, I kind of think I would like that better. I feel I would be more inclined to put points on a vitality increase than a tactical mitigation increase for 2 trait points.
Okay. So you say it's not a major problem then that they were swapped around then?
Now, I think that's why they swapped it around, is I think they're trying to make the Blue Line champion a little bit more survivable as a tank, a little bit more viable as a tank, because I know they're not currently they've never really been thought of as a tank class, but especially right now because in between the lack of aggro mechanics and the fact that they're kind of squishy and die, even with all of the mitigation increases, because of the whole block, parry, evade nonsense. But the big thing is the lack of aggro mechanics, because I've seen that mentioned quite a bit on the champion forums, because we don't really have much in the way of a taunt in Blue Line. We have a single target taunt in Blue Line.
A single target taunt.
A single target taunt with, I think, a minute cooldown.
So it could be useful in a boss fight, perhaps, one that doesn't have lots of ads, that is, but not particularly useful if you have one of those big wavy type of fights.
Right.
Where the hunters inevitably shoot the wrong target and get themselves killed.
Oh, it's a 30-second cooldown. Yeah, so Champion's Challenge is a 30-second cooldown. That's the only taunt that we get. Technically, Horn of Champions could sort of kind of be used that way, but not really. I mean, aside from the fact that it's like an AoE skill that champions have in Blue Line. Yeah, there's really just not anything in the way of taunts. This is why I have said on multiple occasions that if a champion is doing the tanking thing, then they need to be in good communication with the group to make sure that everybody else is on their target, because if anybody's on a different target and pulls aggro, champions can't get it back because there's no real aggro mechanics in Blue Line.
So if a champion is the tank, then the tank should be most definitely be the target assist.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there are some situations where the tank isn't somewhere they are, but champion being the tank sounds like a definite case where they are.
If the champion is the tank, champion needs to be in target assist.
Very well. Anything else to add on the champion change, or this round of champion changes before we go on?
Oh, I was going to talk about that yellow line trait.
Oh, okay.
So Barbed Wall is the one that increases the damage of Blade Wall, and I haven't actually seen the numbers from that, aside from there was a response on the Champions Forum that the Blade Wall's base damage was increased kind of a little too much. However, Blade Wall, if you've got two attacks, like if you've got main and offhand weapons, if you're dual wielding, the boost was only to the main hand attack. It was not to the offhand attack. So it's extremely imbalanced right now. And that's actually a problem that's kind of across the board for champions at the moment, is a lot of the stuff where you've got multiple attacks that are supposed to be between the two weapons. The buff is only really to the main hand weapon and not the offhand weapon. And should be a little bit more balanced.
All right. Hopefully that's something that could be kept in mind. So let's head on to the Guardian, where they pretty much redesigned Redline. And the idea is that the old Redline was pretty much buggy, more buggy, and even more buggy seems to be what...
Not only was it complex and buggy, it was not wanting to be unbuggy.
Yeah, it refused to unbug itself, so therefore they pretty much had to scrap it and redo it. And therefore, the Redline Guardian was... I think that was a joke of ineffectiveness as a class, was to play a Redline Guardian, I get the impression.
Yeah, I mean, Redline Guardian as solo DPS has been a joke for a long time, actually.
So therefore, they're hoping that this will help to do it. The goal of the redesign is to strip out a lot of the underlying complexity of the tree and hopefully getting the general flavor up. Unfortunately, I have not had a chance to do it. I don't play the Guardian all that much, and I'm pretty sure you don't play the Guardian all that much.
No, I have a level 50-something Guardian.
And Cinders, I presume that you don't even know what a Guardian is, right?
No, I do have
a Guardian.
I have a Guardian in the 80s, but because of the way that we leveled it, I was running with a captain, and we did it through skirmishing, and so it was just kind of a matter of spending trait points. Just to spend trait points was how I did it. And I haven't had a chance to go back through and fix it. And I don't play her that often, so.
Well, they'll be resetting the trade points probably on the Guardian anyway, so.
Yeah, which would make a difference. And my other one is high 20s, early 30s. So a lot of this is still just gibberish at the moment for me.
Yeah. Right now, I suspect that the changes aren't nearly as controversial as the stuff and the ones that we were going to be getting to later, because I'm sure every Guardian would agree that no matter what they did here, they could not possibly make it worse than it was.
Well, considering that of the class feedback forum threads on Bora right now, the Guardian forum actually has the most responses in it.
The most responses in it?
The most responses. There are 105 replies. 5 pages worth. I haven't been through them all, but I'm just looking at the list.
It looks like the biggest complaint that's there is that the shield is essentially losing a lot of its functions as with Shield Smash and War Chant. And I'm not completely familiar with those, but that's where I saw the tactical relics come up as something that they were concerned about.
They're worried about the tactical relics.
Yes, and there was a response from... I'm looking for the response because they explained what they were planning to do about that. Give me just a second.
Right. Oh, because they're saying at the bottom there, shield use is effectively obsolete for the time being. We're evaluating what to do with it currently, as it has never scaled properly with our other systems.
Yeah.
So therefore most of the problems, if they've been coming up, are related to shield stuff, then I could see that being it, because it looks like the people Standing Stones have no idea what to do with the shields. They've admitted they have no idea with the shields, and probably a lot of people are giving them suggestions as to what they could do with the shields. And I'm sure that some of them might be less polite than others.
Yeah, I don't know. And then they mentioned like Prey on the Weak, and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about because I haven't paid that much attention to it. Like I said, I just kind of was trading because Sanswinda was like, trade, because we need to go do this. And I was like, okay, hit everything and hope I can do some damage. Or at least, hold my own while she does all the damage, with her archer companion there. So.
Yes. So therefore, unfortunately, we don't know much on the Guardians. If anyone wants to post a comment related to that, keep it civil.
Well, there was a little bit of chatter in, I happened to pop over to Airther's channel because I know Airther plays a Guardian, and also Eldoleth, who's, I think guested on the show at least once, also plays a Guardian. So they've been monitoring the Guardian forum pretty closely, but the stuff they were talking about kind of went over my head because I don't Guardian.
Yeah. So therefore, we lack the expertise this week concerning the Guardians. So let's head over to it'd be really nice. Too bad Sans couldn't make it this week, because our next one is the Hunter. And let's face it, Blue Line Hunters
Actually,
did not
give
like
me a
it.
minute. Give me a minute, because I've actually got her response. She posted it to me in Skype, but I have to take care of a thing, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
Let's say she was mostly concerned about having her movement not inhibited. In conversation with her, she was like, well, as long as I can still run around.
Yes.
Like, okay.
Well, that's because Sans, I believe, used... Actually, no, I was about to say something that in retrospect might not have been the case, because I do know she does a lot of Court of Saragost.
Yeah.
And Court of Saragost is a higher end instance, though it is only a 3-player.
Yeah, well, and I mean, she's tier 2 ready, running with
yes.
Ploy, and she does a lot of kiting. I know when she gets in tough spots, on her own, she'll kite till it's down if she can.
Yes, and right now, Blue Line, I've always gotten the impression, even before these changes, that Blue Line was intended as a solo, very mobile type case where you are giving up damage in favor of survivability and mobility. So therefore, when Blue Line was doing more damage than Red Line, yes, something's wrong. Well, either A, Blue Line was doing too much, or B, Red Line was not doing enough.
Right.
And seeing how I think Blue Line, I got the impression that Blue Line champions were doing much more damage than any other class.
Blue Line Hunters
were scary good.
Blue Line Hunters, yes.
Yes, Blue Line Hunters were doing the most damage. Okay, so Sans wrote to me, but what were her thoughts since she couldn't get to sleep at 2:55 in the morning the other day? At 1:15 as a Blue Line Hunter, I didn't have a problem with the changes and enjoy the speed boost chance, though I still wish it was possible to use the Blue Line survivability skills on the move. In my mind, it kind of defeats the purpose of surviving if you have to stop kiting to heal a fraction of what a hit might do if it caught you while inducting the Purge Poison or healing skill, so I'm not sure it really matters which line the survivability skills are in, if they're only really useful out of combat or in groups where you can stand still. Starting a new hunter, I really noticed the induction times, but I'm not sure they're much different at low levels on the live servers. What will be different is building focus in the medium levels when trading into red for cooldowns won't be possible because of lacking trait points, and automatic focus gains will be low. The obvious solution is giving yourself more room to kite, but that isn't always possible to do without backing into more enemies or walls. Though being able to back up at all is nice, and it would probably be totally survivable with the way they placed Press Onward in the trait trees, if and only if Press Onward and Purge Poison worked on the move. The one on the move heal doesn't come until level 40, and it costs 3 focus, which may be harder to come by if fights aren't planned well and induction skills have to supply the focus.
And this is why she presents academic papers.
Yeah.
Yes, that sounds.
And I thought Purge Poison had been converted to be able to be used on the move. Was that not a thing?
I have no idea.
Let's see.
Or was I thinking of the Burglar's Antidote thing?
You might have been.
Because I know Burglar's Antidote recently got a push to be used on the move.
Well, yeah, Burglar's Antidote, I think, went to being a very nice one. That's. But yeah,
I definitely think Press Onward should be able to be used on the move, especially since it's got that weird animation with it that everybody's been complaining about for forever.
Well, yeah, so it probably is not being used on right because it has that animation. It probably can't be used on the move unless because that would really make the animators pitch a fit.
Well, and it makes sense that if you have to stop moving to use a skill to get a little bit of health back, but in the process of stopping moving, you risk getting caught by your enemy so that they bash you for more than the heal would even heal you for, then yeah, it's not super useful.
So therefore, survivability skills, a couple of them have been nerfed. Because I say the nerfing of the damage, I was expecting that, and I thought that was necessary. So I'm sure some people will tell me why it wasn't. But yes, nerfing survivability is a bit of a problem.
A little bit.
Because that's what Blue Line is for. It's all about survivability. And they say Yellow Line skills have been normal. What do they mean by normalized?
I don't know.
Normalized towards what? It's like, I have no idea what normalized means, and that's the only change I could see that relates to Yellow Line. So it's the only thing about Yellow Line. I don't know what they're talking about. And let's head into the Lore Master then, where they have some trait changes. Remove the red tree trait Empowering Fires. Now, one thing I did know was Power of Knowledge has been removed.
What?
And that one, I think, is one of the more controversial changes because they're saying, what? That's exactly what I think I've been hearing as a result.
Isn't that the skill? Well, and Wizard's Fire was removed, but they're planning on bringing it back. But isn't Power of Knowledge the skill that you can use to analyze your enemies?
No. Power of Knowledge is one where you drain power from your enemies.
Oh. Well, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. It looks like actually they nerfed a lot of the power sharing stuff overall, which doesn't make a lot of sense because that's 9 times out of 10 the reason you want a lore master around is so they can share power. Let's not encourage the Andang way of playing the lore master, which is forgetting that you even have that skill.
Yeah, well, I was checking today on my lore master when I was doing one of my recording sessions for my YouTube series, and I was noting Power of Knowledge on there. I was checking the deed on there because I was wondering where are they going to replace the deed with if they're removing Power of Knowledge. So I was looking at the deed of how much progress I made. I noticed I only used it 3 times.
Well, and every time I've used it, whoever I've been running with is like, are you running low on power? And I'm like, no, it just is off cooldown and it might help, you know? I'm usually running with Sans, and when I run with Sans, and when we were doing Court of Saragosse together, because she would run with my lore master, she always appreciated having the power shared. But other than that, she didn't really need too much help from me. And that was one of the big complaints in the forums, is that when you take that skill away or reduce it significantly, they're wanting to know or they're complaining that, one, it makes it hard if you're in the moors, but it also makes it really hard if you're in a raiding group to actually have any value.
Well, since I don't do raids or the moors, I wouldn't know. Because I had thought that some of the stuff, I guess power was one of the things that I've heard that were masters use for it. Anti-stun is another thing for some special situations.
The couple of times that I remember using Power of Knowledge on my lore master wasn't so much because I was out of power as it drains power from your enemies, and that's what powers their special attacks. So if they don't have any power, they can't pew pew at you.
Exactly.
Well, yes, there is that too.
And it looked like one of the biggest effects to the sharing the power, other than reducing magnitudes, was that it has a cooldown. And I know that was one of the things that I've noticed in running with Pineleaf and Sans with any of my lore masters, is that I could share power frequently, but I couldn't share morale or heals nearly as fast.
Yeah.
And now it looks like I might not be able to do either if it stays the way that it is without any alteration.
I just remember that the days when I was running Sarissa in the group, we had the 2 healer options were either Runekeeper or Lore Master, which is one of the reasons why she died frequently, because neither of them is great at being a healer because of inductions. But nobody had any problems with power.
Here's another. And once again, normalized damage for all lore master skills / defense. What's this normalized? Yeah, it looks like they say that for a lot of the classes. Normalized damage, normalized skill. Yes.
I wonder if they have like a set number that they're trying to get to for each one that they're considering normal. And we just don't know what it is.
All right, I suppose that's possible. Some hidden number that, all right, why did they bother mentioning it?
Some hidden secret standing stone metric.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought they shared it at one point obscurely many ages ago. I don't know.
It's possible that they did, and it's been forgotten since then. Now, the minstrel changes are pretty long.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, and we have here, Anthem of the Third Age is now given out as specialization. Okay. Oh, that's right, because I think it used to come out later or something. Let's see. All anthems now have default duration of 3 minutes. Actually, that's actually a buff, isn't it? Yeah, because I think that anthems used to be a lot shorter.
Minstrel either.
Yeah. I don't recall anthems lasting for 3 minutes because I recall them running out while I'm in the middle of a short fight. So therefore that implies that. So I think it looks like they've buffed up. Yeah, anthem cooldowns reduced by 10 seconds. They used to have very short durations and pretty long cooldowns. So it looks like they've reversed that. So therefore, anthems have been buffed, if I'm reading this right. And anthems stack with one another by default. Yeah, so it looks like anthems have been buffed. I think it's other places where people are really complaining. Raise the Spirit changes. The cooldown has been removed. Induction length has been increased from 1 to 1.2 seconds. And Raise the Spirit was never a viable option when compared to Bolster Courage. We want to make it more viable and a better low-cost, frequent use skill. And you do that by increasing the induction length? Okay. Well, and Blue Line, set bonus open ears is now called Resolute. Right,
well, they increased the induction length, but they removed the cooldown. So
yeah, they removed the
cooldown. You can spam it again.
I guess there is that. Usually when I'm running a Minstrel, I'm running in Red Line because I'm usually soloing when I'm playing a Minstrel. I can't remember the last time my Minstrel healed.
I keep forgetting minis can heal, so.
Yes. I probably would be that Minstrel that will go about. We are halfway through the fight. I'm going around healing constantly and stuff like this. And about halfway through, you says, "Oh, they're asking me why I'm not healing." I said, "I'm healing. See all the green stuff, all the green stuff." Oh, wait a moment. Why is it healing me all the time? Oops.
Oh,
why are your hands glowing?
Hands need to not be glowing for that. Yeah. What do you mean minstrels can heal?
Yeah, we can heal ourselves, yes.
Oh, half the time I forget I can do that.
Yeah.
I just yell at stuff until it dies. What do you mean I can heal myself? I just wait. I usually use those. I treat those as out of combat skills.
Well, there is actually one healing skill that I do use in combat, and that is the one that's has absolutely no induction time that you can do on the move. It has a cooldown. It has a pathetic cooldown, but it instant heals pretty much. And that's the one heal that I commonly use it when I'm in Red Line because, well, it's a heal and I don't have to sit around and be bashed while I'm doing it. And it looks like most of the changes were in yellow line. Oh, it says the trait extended anthems now increase anthems duration by 10 seconds per rank. Well, that's the problem is I've never done yellow line, so I don't know what to compare that to. And Cinders, have you ever played a mini?
Not to speak of, no. I have like 2 of them on Landreval, but they don't do anything. Like literally, I think they're all standing. They're elves, and they're all standing outside the one lady's vineyard. Finn or whoever. So they haven't gone anywhere.
Court of Salvation is that skill that you're thinking of, Pineleaf. And Mary Rose said that she lost Court of Salvation on her bar for like 20 levels and felt silly afterwards. I'm right there with you, Mary Rose. I always forget which skills do what. Like the ones with the green backgrounds on the minstrel, I never use those skills.
Yeah.
What do you mean that's a heal? The skill is called what now? And it does what again?
Yeah, that's right. And the trait Improved Court of Salvation, healed over time, has been converted to a Fellowship Instant Heal, which should properly scale with your implement. Trait increases Court of Salvation Fellowship healing 10%, 15%, 20%, and 25%. That's blue line, of course.
See, just looking at the patch notes, it seems to me like Minstrel Healing has been buffed, but apparently it was nerfed, so I don't get it. Obviously, I'm not playing a minstrel correctly, but I mean, I play champions, and that's pretty much it.
The trouble, I think, had to do with the double dipping on the relics. I think was what on the relics in there, which apparently that was done in order to give them a super bonus or something like that. So the removal of the double dipping was considered to be such a major.
Wow.
Yeah. At least that's the impression I was given.
Come back to me when your class isn't doing more damage than my champion.
And let's head on to the Warden. And ranged offensive strike skill chain debuff changes, and it looks like the offensive strike debuff potency was halved, but the ranged offensive strike debuff duration was doubled. So it looks like they nerfed the effectiveness of them, but increased the time in which they last. So I don't know whether that comes out to a wash or the improvement or nerf or what, because that's stuff that's probably more concerned with yellow line wardens, and I very rarely play yellow line. And then ranged adroit maneuver duration skills. They are doing a lot of things where they're increasing durations in there. Now, trait rearranging, the trait range damage is being moved to row 1 and switching places with momentum. Now, I do tend to trait momentum, but if I could trait range damage instead of momentum, I think I would. Now, I am, of course, coming in from a different line and occasionally trait that. I will say that I would rather have range damage than momentum, so therefore, I think I can live with that. Persevere and Impressive Flourish buff change have been updated rating, whatever updated means. The Battle Memory version of Dance War no longer provides too high an amount of evade rating. I always forget about using Battle Memory, so I think that's probably someone would say, what?
I use Battle Memory occasionally if I've got a skill in it. But in order to open up Battle Memory, you need to use a couple of certain specific skills, and I almost never use those.
Well, yeah, there is that. Well, I occasionally use it by accident, so therefore usually. I do sometimes. And sometimes I have a really nice skill in battle memory, and sometimes it's like, oh, what? Oh, why do I want to do that? And warning shot has been changed. The warning shot now gains a forced taunt, which is nice. Cooldown is extended to about 45 seconds, which is long compared to the old cooldown. Debuff duration extended to 60 seconds, which I guess compensates for the increase in the cooldown. And
yeah, but look at this bottom line. Skill cannot be blocked, parried, evaded, or miss.
Yeah, that's good. So therefore, that's a nice forced taunt to add to the warden. And in fact, that probably could be really useful because one of my biggest problems in the warden is trying to get the attention of the mobs. And usually just at that time, I've got my gambit selector as something from the previous combat, and it's something completely useless at that time point. And since I have a problem about remembering to use battle preparation, and besides, you can't really use battle preparation all that effectively if people are jumping to the next combat before you have a chance for your thing to cool down anyway. So therefore, I usually have the wrong thing up. And when they come up to me, I try to do my yell to get them to come to me, but usually by the time they're that close, they're all scattered all over the place. So having a forced taunt on a ranged skill could be pretty useful. So I think I could live with that. And the following skills now pull from your melee implement: the boot, boar's rush, ranged boot, and ranged boar's rush, including the potent versions. I don't know how I feel about that. Hold on. I don't know how to feel about that. Because the boot, to me...
Well, the boot really kind of should be a ranged skill based on what it is. Or not a ranged skill. It should be a melee skill. I mean, you should be up close and personal based on the animation that is the boot.
Yeah.
Even the ranged version.
Well, the ranged boot is a bit of a misnomer, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it should never be ranged. It should always be melee.
Well, yes, but when you're range spec, you need an interrupt that's range. So I presume it's the boot of your javelin that you're throwing at them. But the boot is saying now pulling from your melee implement. The trouble is that means that when you're disarmed, you can no longer use the boot. That's what that means. To me, the most important feature of the boot was it still worked when you were disarmed. But now it looks like it's no longer doing so. Even though, if I have if I just got boot active and I get disarmed right at that point, I could still kick them because boot will still work in that case. But this is implying that since it's drawing from your melee implement, that means that if your melee implement isn't there, you won't be able to use it.
Unless they count your feet and hands as part of your melee implements.
No, because they're taught, meaning that they will decide its damage type based on your melee implement. So therefore, if you want the boot to do Balerian damage, fine. I would presume that's what that means there. Then, that's great. But losing the ability to boot while you're disarmed, I don't like that trade-off.
That would be frustrating.
Now, of course, in order to set up the boot, you need to have a melee implement, but you won't believe how many times I get disarmed right after doing my first spear attack. And then I could follow up with the shield and then kick. But if that happens now, I don't think I'll be able to do that anymore. But that's assuming that I'm reading this right.
It might be something to try the next time Bull Roar's up, if that's still one of the things that they're looking at.
Yeah, all right. Maybe I should read that thread on the warden changes and see if anyone has done a test on that already. All right, we have spent all that time looking into this. Anything else you want to say about class changes before we move on to the other updates?
Just that if you want more opinions on it, you should definitely check out the Bull Roar class forums.
Yes.
And I took a quick peek through the Minstrel one, and basically it looks like it's full of whining.
Okay. And let's head into the anniversary event. They are creating a new version of the anniversary scavenger hunts. For
Note
years,
that this is still the Bull Roar changes we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about Bull Roar changes for levels player 51 and over. This is
51 and below. So, okay, if you're level 51 and below, then you have a whole new set of quests. However, if you're 52 to level 1 whatever, you still can't do like most of the quests.
Oh.
Because there's that whole there's basically still a whole gap level that, I mean, if
I should make a note here before you get too far on that. And that is that they have already stated, based on feedback in the forums, that they're scrapping the level cap.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the way it is currently, you can only do it up to level 51. So if in the course of this you hit level 52, yeah. So it's nice to hear that they've responded to that feedback and said that, okay, this will apply to all of the levels. So even because the way the anniversary quests are currently, unless you're basically at 105 or cap, you can't do a lot of this stuff. So having a lower level version available is really nice.
Yeah, I think they're worried that some people will complain that you're going to make us do it all twice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just excited because I know this is my first anniversary event and I wanted to be able to do the year 1 things and I couldn't because with the exception of my level capped character on Landerval, none of my characters were high enough level to be able to get into the areas to complete any of the year 1 quests.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I should note that some people have been doing testing on this and did find a couple of bugs here and there. And those, I'm pretty sure they're going to work on, try to take care of all of those so that people will actually be able to finish the event. Because I think there are one or two things that slipped where they thought, oh, yes, there should be no trouble with it. Oh, that's right, Tomb of Elendil. Level 51 character. Oh, right. Obviously, if they found 5 other people that wanted to do it with them, they'd have absolutely no trouble with that instance. But if the Tomb of Elendil is not soloable by a level 51 character, well, I guess if you're super good at level 51, but I can't do it on a 51 character. I'll say it that way. So therefore, they're probably checking on a little bit of feedback on there to find out what can be completed, what can't be, and what troubles they're having. And hopefully they'll have all of them fixed by the time of it. And of course, in next week's build, we hope that the cap has been removed by then so that we could do a better testing on everything. Summer festivities. They say that there are these 2 new instances that are related to the Summer Festival. I don't know why they put this into the patch notes because Summer Festival was not active at any point that I was logged on the Bull Roar.
Oh, I thought it was supposed to be.
No, anniversary event was active so that people could
Yeah, but
test.
I thought Summer Festival was supposed to be too, unless they're going to activate it next time Bull Roar's up.
Yeah, that's what I had thought based on some of the stuff said by various people, but Summer Festival was not on at any point that I logged in. And I logged in a couple of times. Nope, can't do it. Can't open instance. Summer Festival isn't active. So I can't give any ones on there, and I'm very interested to see the Summer festivity, the perfect picnic, or it sounds like to me survival Hobbiton.
What would survival Hobbiton be?
You have to eat all of the pies and still stay conscious.
Oh, that's what that is.
No. Survival Hobbiton was an April Fool's joke that I made back on the Casual Stroll to Mordor one year, where I was saying, there's a new skirmish coming up.
Okay, so what does survival Hobbiton entail then, Pineleaf?
Well, obviously, I have a feeling your thing about the eating any pies without passing out is probably more what the summer perfect picnic is going to be about, because I was talking about something more to do with Scouring the Shire, where you're trying to deliver foodstuffs to all these people while trying to avoid all the brigands that have taken over Hobbiton. So it was, and you try to keep that up as long as possible. So it was supposed to be a survival skirmish.
So like the survival barrow downs.
Yeah.
Except you have to actually run around and do stuff instead of just standing there and staying alive.
Right. Yeah. So it's not trying to stay alive. You're trying to complete all these things to satisfy things at the same time also. And the other one is the Thring, a battle against Thring, which is, I will assume, one of the Rift bosses. I'm sure I fought Thring at one time or the other.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't remember what it's from.
Well, they said that they were taking a Rift boss for this, so I will assume it's Thring. Ooh, it's so many years ago since Thring was the... All right, Thring, which boss is he? He's the second to last boss of the Rift and Nerds. So he's the last boss before the Balrog.
Oh, okay. So that's the guy after you do all the salamanders.
Yeah, he is the leader of the Goshra or Fire Orcs.
Yeah.
What area is he in?
It's in the Rift of Nerskashu. The Rift raid.
Okay, so that would be why I don't have a clue.
Yeah, I don't think we've dragged you through there yet.
That means it's coming, though.
Well, it was, so the Rift was one of the original level 50 like endgame type instances. It was the thing that everybody geared up for to go do. Kind of like the Abyss of Mordath is now.
Okay. I haven't done that one either. And I'm okay with that.
It's a non-scalable, must be done at level 50. I mean, you can do it at higher level, but it's kind of fun still to run through it at level 50. And I've actually done it on level and not completed it. So I have a burglar who's seeking some vengeance on the instance.
Yeah. That instance can be... I've only tried it once. Well, okay, I've tried it a couple of times, but I've only come close to finishing it once. And yeah, it got 3:00 in the morning. It was time to stop.
It requires a serious time commitment because even if you do it with a bunch of overleveled people, you're still talking a good 2-3 hours.
And yeah, that's right. Back when I tried it, 2 to 3 hours was an understatement. But today, yeah, that might be true.
I think trying to do it on level, you're looking at about 4.
And therefore, let's head into general content. High Elf instance, Into Darkness Falls a Star. Rescued soldiers now display billboard text properly. Whoop-de-doo.
Right?
Yeah. The strongholds of the North, reforging a kingdom, corrected an improper guidance text. So some of these things are wondering, okay, yeah, right, well,
No, you missed one of the most important ones. Instances and raids, Abyss of Mordath, the Lost Lore housing item is now properly voiced. Come on, those are important, because collecting pages is like my newest obsession.
Right. Now, the funniest one I saw is some text changes and corrections have been made to the perfect picnic. They haven't even released it yet.
Well, at least they caught it before they released it. So then you don't have an issue like the Intriguing Filth where it goes live before somebody fixes it.
Well, I suppose so. And let's see. And they also made some changes on the Looking for Fellowship panel. And I heard some moaning about this one. Apparently, they took a lot of the Looking for Fellowship options out of the social panel. That's at least what it looked like to me.
Yeah, the regular. So I guess they're adding a new tab to the social panel is what it sounds like. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't check it since I
don't
usually
play
don't
a
use
lot
it for
with
that
the social
purpose.
panel, honestly, because if I'm looking for people to group with, I'm not doing it through the social panel.
Yeah. The main thing I use the social panel for is to look for someone. For example, if I'm going to a place and I want someone to talk with to see if they're on or something like that, and they're not on my friends list, then I go through the social panel to try to figure it out. So in other words, not often. And then some performance things made a performance improvement related to loading deeds, performance improvement related to the loading of quest locations. The game launcher now provides quick access to Microsoft's DirectX web installer to make it easier to fix DirectX issues. LOTRO will no longer attempt to enumerate or recognize XBot input devices. I never knew it attempted to do so. Added a link to view the character transfer guide to the character transfer wizard on the launcher. Right. LOTRO browser helper.exe no longer produces LOTRO browser helper _x.log files, whatever. Remove, here's one. Remove turbine from the log path. The logs are now stored. Okay. Essentially, they are trying to get rid of the word turbine anywhere they could. And therefore,
this is good, actually.
Yeah. The turbine launcher is now going to be called LOTRO launcher. But what they did to the turbine launcher is turning it into a stub. So that way, if you have a shortcut to turbine launcher, it will at least call that. And what all that turbine launcher does is open up LOTRO launcher. And they recommend that you update your shortcuts appropriately. But at least if you forget to do so, you'll still be able to play the game.
Well, that's nice of them.
And we've been here for an hour, and that's the patch notes.
There was a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes, and I'm sure we'll get plenty of emails and comments telling us how we got everything wrong.
I'm sure.
And here we are with the beacon, where we have whatever that group fellowship on the top photo is from.
That's a bunch of people in need of a makeover.
Yeah. Let's see. Trying to see, is that one person from each? No, because they're...
No, there's two men.
Yeah, they're two men.
And I'm pretty sure that that's a woman and a regular elf.
Right, yeah. When I saw two beards there, I said, wait a minute, but that looks like a woman instead of a second elf. So,
Yeah, it is.
So, therefore, and so it's not one of each of the six races, but it is a nice little fellowship photo up on the top there and on our community's spotlight. Death by Chocolate Productions presents a pirate festival on May 26th on Crick Hollow. And
I'm going to reiterate that Death by Chocolate is an awesome ice cream flavor.
Yes. And calling all creeps and freeps on Landreval. There are groups gathering Tuesday and Thursday nights in the moors around 8 p.m. server time. You could read more about that by the link in the beacon. And Fibro Jedi released a new installment of this fan fiction, and Dulcet Tones continues to show the road on the Belegear server on May 19th. For the Kin Hall, The Blades of Ravenwood is a fresh new kinship on Laurelin. Their main focus is to help players of all levels, but also to have fun and socialize. They hold weekly events and have been selected to serve both low-level players and in-game players. They also host parties at their Kinship Island and at the Prancing Pony. And they have a Discord server and a Facebook group for people who stay current on the upcoming events. If you're interested, send a tell to the Pirates of Shursigan? Oh, never mind. Oh, boy, I was reading it. No, Piranda or Shursigon. Well, Send it to Piranda because I can pronounce that more easily. Or read it in the LOTRO Beacon. And that is on Laurelin. Our weekly comment is, what is the best ale in LOTRO?
That's a tough call. What is it I'm making?
I know.
Pretty much anything handcrafted. But I do believe that Other Champion is in the process of making some Winterberry Ale. But really anything that gets you the really, really awesome smashed effect is good.
Yes.
And get your character mumbling to themselves.
Yes, I do know that one person had a particular love for Bulwer's Brew.
Yes. Well, Bulwer's Brew is interesting because you not only get the smashed effect, but you have like little clovers floating out of your character's head while you're smashed. And it's a little bit harder to acquire, however, so I will stick to stuff that's easier. I have noticed it's sometimes hard to tell in the various pubs around Middle-earth what brew is going to get you completely trashed. And this was a quest that I went on for Sarissa because when we were going to do the Rift Raid, I decided that she was not doing it sober. So she went on a hunt throughout Middle-earth to try and find something that was like really strong so she could be smashed for the whole thing. And she ended up crafting her own beer and then shared it with the group. So the whole raid was drinking.
The whole raid?
The whole raid was drinking in game. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. She had like 2 stacks of 50 and she just shared them out. But she kept most for herself and actually still has some of that beer.
I was thinking that my favorites are the kegged beers, the Moria keg and the other one that transports you. I have the most fun with those. Beers. Well, yes, but they're so much fun because you never know where you're going to end up.
Which is why they're dangerous beers.
But that makes them the best because you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, maybe they don't count as ale, but that would be my put there would be those ones. Even though one of them has killed me.
Well, yeah. Then let's head to the fan site nude and
Pineleaf, do you not have an answer to this question?
Not really. I really don't drink in game all that much, except for that one quest that requires you to do so. Well, a couple of quests require you to do so. Unless it's part of a quest, I don't do so.
Pardon me while I note something on my to-do list.
In our fan site news, you can join Zog on their adventures in Helm's Deep as they search for matron survivors, and Gamolio Dan travels to Menarain in his Let's Play series on his part 101, and Elglenar quests in the Lone Lands on his episode 53 of his series. And in the news, of course, you get to watch Court of the Rings on Friday afternoons. And we have LOTRO bonus days now where you can get 25% on Skirmish Marks this weekend. So if you're listening live, you have an opportunity for that. And upcoming festivals, the Anniversary Encore is from June 7th through June 18th. And the Summer Festival will be June 28th through July 17th. And our screenshot of the week is sent in by Dulciana. And I see a lot of antlers there.
There are a lot of antlers there. What elk is that?
Not sure.
Does Mirkwood have a specific mount that goes with it that you can get if you reach a certain reputation level with it?
Not that I've found yet. Mary Rose in the chat comments that she loves Jajax's questline drinking contest.
Yeah.
I agree because I love Jajax. Jajax is the best.
I don't think I've done that questline yet.
Probably not, because they haven't started you on Volume 4 because you're catching up on content.
Yes.
Now let's head into our store sales for the week. And Terry Adwin, what's on sale?
So this week's free sample is Universal Solvent coupon code, which makes me think of a cleaning product, but I guess the Universal Solvent is sort of a cleaning product in its own, so I'm not really sure why it's a crafting ingredient.
Yeah, that's well, I think you're trying to dissolve the essence or something like that in order to...
don't know. It just sounds really not safe. Also, 25% off the Valar items, the Gift of the Valar, Blessing of the Valar, and Area of the Valar, third age item trove, and Legacy scroll box. Now would be the time to get any of those Valar thingies, except I don't have any LOTRO points. I spent them all.
Then let's head into our site news. And we have Critters Journey number 66. How I Met You, Druidan. How I Met Your Druidan.
Your Druidan,
yes.
Yeah.
And, well, it's hard to talk about Critters without spoilers.
There is, for those who are inclined to spot it, there is a shout out to Labyrinth that I thought was fantastic. The Labyrinth movie.
The one with, is it David Bowie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I like that one. I might have to read that.
Okay, that one totally went over my head then.
That's okay. That's one of my favorite movies, so.
It's a good movie. You should watch it.
I've seen it once. And that was through Drax prodding.
Yeah, I own the anniversary edition of that movie.
Ah. So let's head into then the next episode on Poems of the Pine, A Light for the Darkness. We traveled afar with the treasure we gained to learn its lore and links to the past. It was a source of hope before Sauron's forces brought it to Mordor and muddied its light. When the taint was cleansed by our quest to the source, to Elrond we brought this bubble of the past. He infused the artifact with the flame of the west, so we could bring brightness to the bounds of Mordor. With this gift we passed into Gorgoroth the Dark, a land of ash and lasting doom. We went to Lugash, where we learned Cordoville, studied the ash for the stories it held. He found a finger of fractured metal from times when Gondor was great. Such pieces of lore were precious to her as she studied the stories of the Waste.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wanting to slap her face?
I seem to remember that this was another instance where I was saying, this is a really bad idea. This is a really bad idea. Why are we doing this? This is a terrible idea. This is not going to end well. But I spent most of Mordor doing that, so I'm kind of still doing that, actually.
All right. Yeah. Let's head into our week in LOTRO. And Terry Adwin, what have you been up to?
Well, I led the girls of Middle-earth on a run through the Great Barrows instances. So we did all three. We did the Maze and Thader, and then we took on Sambrog. 5 burglars and a hunter make for a lot of squishy. But we actually did, we ended up having Arindis along as a ringer because Cinder's internet died, and she wasn't able to make it for burglar number 6. So we took a hunter, and yeah, it was. But for having a lot of squishy, really, we didn't have too many deaths. It also makes for a lot of sharp pointing objects, which are weirdly useful against a lot of undead. It made the undead things stop moving again fairly quickly. We got some more practice with fellowship maneuvers, so that was a lot of fun. Ish. I mean, we're getting a little bit better, but there's a certain hobbit that can't follow directions. Mm-hmm. So that makes for challenging instances. We discovered a couple that I didn't even know were a thing just from accident. Yeah, when you say everybody hit green and then you get 2 greens and a yellow and then 2 more greens and a yellow and it's like, what? And it does something. It was cool. Who knew? And that's basically Girls of Middle-earth in a nutshell. Is you say everybody do green and you get 4 greens and 2 yellows. Landrel Terry Adwin attended an ill-omened dinner in Lake Town, which is hilarious because the instance title is The Deadly Dinner. So, before we even go in the instance, I'm like, I predict this is not going to end well for at least one person. Yeah. And so we finally wrapped up the Lake Town bit of story and headed on to Dale, where she had some issues with the Dale folk because we were going around talking to them about some Easterling refugees and they were being all snobby. And I'm like, look, my people didn't have any problems whatsoever. I mean, they kind of did, but she's from Gondor, so she can lord it over these Dale folk for being snobs. I mean, granted, Minas Tirith, they can stick the Easterling somewhere where they don't really have to deal with them, and I guess Dale isn't really set up like that. Yeah, so Terry Adwin and politics are not really a good combination. Actually, it was kind of funny because we went to the dinner and they're making fun of somebody made a comment about what she's wearing, which is funny because Sans and Pineleaf had both changed into fancy dinner appropriate clothes. And I'm going through Terry's outfits and I'm like, okay, so I've got armor and some more armor and look, some armor, and she's got 6 outfits and all of them are armor. I'm like, what do you want me to wear to dinner? It's all armor. And then we got out of the instance and Pineleaf said something about, I should change into something more appropriate for fighting things. And I said, see, I don't have that problem. Everything's armor. And it came in handy in Dale because we're running around Dale and you get into trouble. She's just always prepared for trouble. And then my third highlight isn't so much a highlight as it is going back to what we were talking about for different beers. Other Champion is continuing his quest to do crafting. and more crafting. And yes,
even more crafting.
some more crafting. But he's not really super useful for much else at the moment because he's only level 73 champion, and he's an elf, so it's kind of low on my leveling priority. And he is my cook. So he's currently tasked with making food for the unwise group that is the Girls of Middle-earth.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he was making ale.
Well, that too, because it's a group of burglars, and I'm pretty sure they shouldn't be running around sober.
Definitely not.
So he's going to be doing some cooked food and some trail food and some soups and things, because Burglar's Antidote isn't actually halfway decent until like whatever level it turns into Burglar's Antidote and does more than just poisons, which I think is like 26, 28, something like that. It gets cool. So soup for the group, because we all wound up with these terrible diseases and it did not end well for a couple of and also ale. Lots and lots and lots of ale. So that was my week. Cinders, how was yours?
Mine was actually pretty slow. This week has been rather stressful at work, and so I've been coming home and crashing, but I did take Cinderina out on an unauthorized adventure. She generally runs around with Sanswinda's characters because she's a lore master, and I'm still pretty new, and I don't know what I'm doing, but as Terry mentioned, I'm still catching up on a lot of content, so I haven't really gotten to take her into the new area, but I walked out of the hall under the mountain on a whim and discovered that there was a glowy ring on a dwarf outside the door, and so I talked to the dwarf, and they said, go back in and listen to the king. And so I went back in and I listened to the king, and I got my first tokens of the lakes and rivers, and I did not die. So I was quite excited. Other than that, I haven't done much because the internet has been in and out, and we aren't quite sure what's going on with it, but so far so good. Pineleaf, how was your week?
I will begin with my War-Norn Crick Hollow, where I was watching one of Fibro Jedi's, his latest video on him playing the Warden and learning the Warden class. And at one point in there, I was talking about the group, the abilities were the Warden. Oh, that's right. He went in and went to a fight. He wound up fighting about 6 mobs at a time when you're at Weathertop, and you're sent in to kill those orcs out there by candidates. And he wound up accidentally pulling 6 of them at a time and survived to it, which at a higher level Warden is nothing unusual, but I was a bit surprised that he managed it on a level 21 Warden. And when he managed that, I was telling him, okay, so I was posting comment on YouTube, and I thought, well then, why don't you get some practice by going in and grabbing the entire courtyard in Trouble in Tuckborough? And I thought...
And how did that work out?
Well, then that gave me the idea. Well, I don't think he did that, but I thought, well, let me go and see how it works. Because for a Warden, that shouldn't be too much of a problem, because Wardens and their area drains, actually a Warden shouldn't have too much trouble with it, at least when they reach a certain level in there. So I decided to take in my Captain Warden, went in, did a 115 Tuckborough run on my Warden, and with the intent of going into the courtyard and doing just that, and hope I didn't pull a lot of pew-pews when I did this. And I went in there, and I got to the final counterattack just before there, and during the counterattack, something didn't go quite right, and one of the mobs inside the courtyard got pulled and that character brought in a couple of more, so I wound up pulling in half the courtyard during the second counterattack. And at this point I say, but my plan was to pull the entire courtyard. So if I already pulled in half of it, the only way for me to pull the entire courtyard is to go in right now and pull the rest of it. So now I'm fighting the second counter attack, plus the entire courtyards. And let's see, the lieutenants I had at the time was a dour hand. Can't remember which dour hand it was. A venomous blood arrow.
So much for no pew-pews.
Yeah, so what I did is I went next to the venomous blood arrow. And a deathmonger.
Oh.
So that was the fun combination. I went on, I think, and of course I was draining life like crazy from them because that's how Warren survived in this thing. So I had things all over the place. I was draining their lives. And of course, Flax is going there going pew, 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 pew. As she tends to do when I'm skirmishing there. And so therefore, we're taking care of that. I'm draining them, occasionally hitting the venomous blood arrow to make sure that I don't get venomed. And then, of course, kicking the boot. This is where the boot comes in handy. As soon as the venomous blood arrow dropped, of course, the deathmonger attempts to raise the spirit of the venomous blood arrow. So therefore, giving a quick boot into the throat of the deathmonger proved useful in that case. So therefore, I did some very irresponsible skirmishing by pulling the courtyard in Trouble in Tuckborough while finishing the second counterattack there. But I did demonstrate my point that, yes, a warden should be able to do that and survive, because that is the specialty of wardens. Because Fibro Jedi is more comfortable fighting against one large boss at a time. But I was telling him that with a warden, once you reach a certain level, going against huge, massive numbers of trash mobs is easy on a warden.
Yeah, it can be fairly therapeutic, actually.
It can be fairly therapeutic because you just see, your morale goes down, then whoop, up, down, up. And then my lore master once again watched as his cat tore apart a boss. In this case, the boss in New Devilry, where you had this big, huge, nameless boss. Actually, there is a name for that boss now I think of it, but I was making jokes all through my lore master thing that we have these named mobs who are of the class Nameless. There's something not quite right here. But anyway, the big boss in New Devilry, I just came in. I think my cat managed to take him down in 5 seconds. If it lasted that long. No, that's right. It's the menagerie that acted, because what I did is, of course, it's always the same. See, how well does the menagerie do against this? How well does the menagerie do against here? How well does the menagerie? In every boss fight, I've brought that cat, I should say the menagerie out. Yeah, they were. They just tore the boss up, and it was over. I mean, the Watcher was ripped to pieces. The boss in New Devilry was ripped to pieces, and I think at least one other boss. That's right, and the bosses in the Drowned Treasury. Yeah, just rip. That's right, all the sub-bosses in Drowned Treasury. So yes, the zoo is very powerful in those inspirational instances. And my warden on Langeval searched for a piece of wood that was her own size. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of the sequels to our little awkward dinner there. And that was that we were being sent to find a piece of wood as it gives the size. It's about 3 feet tall. In other words, hobbit size.
Hobbit sized, yes.
Is this about my size?
Yeah, Sans actually laid down next to it to compare the size of the log.
Yeah. Yeah, that pretty much fit the bill on it. And in news beyond LOTRO, we have that Wizards The Wizard's Quest special event at Gen Con this year is The Lord of the Rings, the card game. Now, I've not yet played the Wizard's Quest since that's a special event at Gen Con. And so therefore they are basing it on the Lord of the Rings card game, which is an interesting twist to the whole thing. So that'll be if you're going to Gen Con 2018 this year, and if you haven't already purchased your ticket, I suspect you won't be able to do so because I think they're already, I don't know, I can't remember if it's sold out already or not, but it.
At the time Drac posted the article, 2 of the 3 sessions were sold out.
2 of the 3 sessions were sold out. Yeah, that's sort of the way things are going. Gen Con is, yeah, you have to register early or you're not going. And if we currently have 17 supporters on Patreon, if you'd like to join this illustrious raid of players and help support LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you could support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you'll find rewards, including a mention on a podcast of your choice, or you can be a guest with us for an episode of LOTRO Players News. Though we are looking for ideas on restructuring the patron rewards, and if you would like to send in a suggestion, you could send it to Drac at lotroplayers.com. We did not receive any emails this week, but if you'd like to send us one, you can send it to podcast at lotroplayers.com. You can also follow us at Twitter, the Players Alliance at Players Ally, Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Ariadness at Ariadness, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, Sanswinda at Sanswinda, and Terry Adwin at Terry Adwin. And I should also note there that we have received a message from Black that due to situations at work, he will no longer have time in order to help us in this podcast, so that he will be leaving the podcast. So therefore, he will not be with us any longer. So let's wish him well in his job, even though it is taking him away from this.
We're sad to see him go.
Yes. And the Players Alliance has 4 shows. Every Monday at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have DDO Players News. Every Saturday at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have LOTRO Players News. Every other Thursday at 9:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have XP Quest. And on the first Thursday of each month at 9:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have Chromatic Bits. You join us for our live shows at lotroplayers.com/live. And that is all for tonight. And this is Pineleaf Neils reminding you that unless you're a warden, you don't want to go around playing the entire courtyard of Trouble in Tuckborough. So actually, can the champion do that?
I have.
Okay. If you do it, be responsible at doing it.
I was going to ask, did you survive?
Yeah.
Well, that's delightful.
Good night.